The suburban neighborhood of Chicago was wrapped in autumn twilight. Caroline Foster picked up the mail from her doorstep as she returned home from the hospital. Among the letters, an invitation printed on expensive paper caught her eye. It was from her sister Vanessa, the younger one of the two. Caroline had often been compared to her sister. This had been happening since childhood. Caroline was serious and responsible, raised to meet her parents' expectations. On the other hand, Vanessa, 5 years younger, was bright, active, and full of confidence. Their parents often told Caroline, "You should learn from Vanessa." "I'm home," Caroline called out, and 7-year-old Aiden came running from the hallway. "Mom. Today I drew a dinosaur at school. The teacher said mine was the best." Caroline smiled as she stroked her son's head. "That's wonderful. Will you show me?" From the kitchen, she could see 10-year-old Emma doing her homework, and her husband Jason had just returned from work, loosening his tie while making coffee. A perfect family portrait was right before her eyes. Caroline was proud of the home she had built during 15 years of marriage. "Any interesting mail?" Jason asked. Caroline picked up the invitation. "It's from Vanessa." "Probably." She opened the envelope and was momentarily speechless. "She's engaged. To Richard Grant." "The developer?" Jason asked, looking somewhat surprised. "He's a big shot in the industry, isn't he?" Caroline nodded. Richard Grant was a successful real estate developer, well known in local business circles. She continued reading the invitation. "The wedding is in 3 months. It looks like our whole family is invited." That night, after the children were in bed, Caroline was looking at the invitation in their bedroom. Vanessa always seemed to be one step ahead. Graduating top of her class from law school, working at a prestigious law firm, and now marrying a successful businessman. Jason came out of the shower and noticed her expression. "What are you thinking about?" "Just Vanessa. Everything always works out for her." "Caroline," Jason sat beside her. "You have a wonderful life. A good job, lovely children, and me," he winked at her. Caroline smiled. "I know. But what?" "Nothing," she said. "I'm just tired." The next morning, Caroline called Vanessa. "Congratulations on your engagement." "Thank you." Vanessa's voice was filled with excitement. "I can't believe it. He's perfect. You'll help with the wedding preparations, right? We're sisters after all." Caroline smiled. "Of course. Just tell me what you need." "Wonderful. Lunch tomorrow. I want to tell you all the details." Caroline checked her work schedule. "That sounds good. I'm looking forward to it." After hanging up, Caroline felt mixed emotions. She was genuinely happy for her sister, but at the same time, she was struck by a strange feeling. She reflected on her own marriage. 15 years ago, she and Jason had married for love. The first few years were passionate, but after the children were born, their life had settled into a routine. Nothing was particularly wrong, but the thrill had faded. At lunch the next day, Vanessa was radiant. She shared every detail from how she met Richard to their engagement, and Caroline listened attentively. "Caroline, I've always wanted to be like you," Vanessa suddenly said. "Always your parents' pride." Caroline was surprised. "Me? But you're much more successful." Vanessa shook her head. "In my career, maybe. But you have a happy family. That's what I've always wanted." Those words made Caroline pensive. The sister she had been envying was actually envying her. Ironically, she had recently begun feeling something was off in what she thought was her perfect family. Several weeks passed, and Caroline was helping with wedding preparations between work and family responsibilities. One night, Aidan said to her before bedtime, "Mom, I don't like Uncle Richard." "Why not?" Caroline asked, kissing his forehead.
Do you know some people earn over $10,000 a month just by posting Reddit stories on YouTube? No face, no voice, just a laptop. I do it too, link below if you're curious.
"Because he always hides his phone when he sees me. Like he's doing something bad." Caroline chuckled softly. "I'm sure that's not the case. Uncle Richard is a busy businessman who deals with important information. It's just your imagination." Aidan didn't seem convinced but said nothing more. Caroline told herself not to worry too much about a child's intuition. It was probably just stress from the wedding preparations. When she got home, Jason was talking on his cell phone in the living room. When she entered, he quickly hung up. "Who were you talking to?" Caroline asked. "Oh, just a work call," Jason answered, looking somewhat uneasy. "Sorry I'm late. The project is running behind." Caroline had noticed that her husband had been coming home late more often lately. Sometimes, he would go out on weekends for emergency work meetings. She told herself it was just the stress of Vanessa's wedding making her nervous. Their family was happy. At least, that's what she wanted to believe. The day before the wedding, the hotel lobby was bustling with preparations for the rehearsal dinner. Caroline had just finished a final meeting with the hotel staff. The children were supposed to be playing in the hotel pool. As she crossed the lobby, something caught her eye through the large windows facing the parking lot. Aidan was in the parking lot, prowling around Richard's luxury car. He was peering into the car, as if looking for something. Caroline hurried outside. "Aidan! What are you doing?" She approached her son. "You shouldn't be looking into other people's cars without permission." Aidan turned around, looking startled. "Mom, I was just checking something." "Checking what?" Aidan kicked the ground with his toe. "Nothing," he mumbled. Caroline was puzzled but didn't pursue it further. "It's time to get out of the pool and take a shower. We have the rehearsal dinner tonight." That evening, the rehearsal dinner went smoothly, with relatives from both families enjoying a pleasant time together. However, during the dinner, Caroline noticed Jason checking his phone several times and once leaving the table to make a call. When he returned, she asked, "Is everything okay?" "Oh, just a small problem at work," Jason answered lightly. "I need to take care of it tonight." "I'm sorry, Caroline." "Tonight? But the wedding is tomorrow." "I know. But it's an emergency. I'll be back in a couple of hours." Caroline was disappointed but didn't argue. Jason was an executive at a construction company, in a position of responsibility. She showed understanding as usual. "All right. I'll take the kids back to the room first." Back in the hotel room, Aidan was quieter than usual. Emma was playing a game on her tablet, but Aidan sat on the bed, his chin resting on his small knees, deep in thought. "What's wrong, Aidan?" Caroline sat next to her son. "When is Dad coming back?" "As soon as he finishes work. It's an important day tomorrow, so go to sleep early." Aidan was silent for a moment but suddenly asked, "Is Uncle Richard a good person?" Caroline was surprised. "Of course. Why do you ask?" "Because." Aidan hesitated. "Never mind." Caroline kissed her son's forehead. "Don't overthink things. Come on, let's brush your teeth and get ready for bed." After the children had fallen asleep, Jason still hadn't returned. Caroline called his cell phone several times, but only got his voicemail. Around midnight, the door finally opened, and Jason came in. "I'm sorry I'm so late," he said in a low voice. The problem was more complicated than I expected. Caroline looked at her husband's face. He seemed tired but also somewhat uneasy. Is everything all right? Yes, we managed to resolve it, Jason said, loosening his tie. Why are you still up? You should go to sleep. I was waiting for you, Caroline said. But anxiety was spreading in her heart. The morning of the wedding day, the hotel was bustling. Caroline was dressed in her bridesmaid dress, helping Vanessa get ready in her room. Her sister was dressed in a pure white wedding gown and looked so happy she might burst into tears at any moment. I can't believe this day has come, Vanessa said, looking out the window. Caroline, thank you so much. This day wouldn't have come without you. Caroline hugged her sister. If you're happy, that's all that matters. The ceremony proceeded perfectly. Smiles were everywhere, surrounded by a festive atmosphere. However, throughout the ceremony, Caroline noticed her husband exchanging glances with her sister several times. At one point, it even looked like Jason winked at Vanessa. Was it just a friendly gesture, or? Caroline thought her imagination was running wild. But when she glanced back, she saw Aiden taking out his smartphone during the ceremony and filming something. He normally didn't show much interest in technology. She signaled with her eyes for him to put the phone away, but Aiden just looked at her for a moment, then continued. As the reception began and toasts and speeches were underway, Caroline saw Vanessa heading to the restroom. Thinking she might need help as her sister, she also got up. When she stepped into the hallway, an astonishing sight greeted her. As Vanessa came out of the restroom, Jason was waiting for her. After a brief conversation, Jason placed his hand on Vanessa's arm and whispered something. The expression on their faces suggested this was more than just a conversation between in-laws. Caroline hid behind a wall and watched the scene. Her heart was pounding wildly. Vanessa and Jason walked away in different directions, and Caroline returned to the dance floor on trembling legs. Something was wrong. But this was her sister's special day. She pretended not to notice and forced a smile. After dinner, when the dancing began, Caroline returned to the table and noticed Aiden was unusually restless, checking his phone repeatedly. "What's wrong?" she asked. Aiden looked up at his mother and answered in a small voice, "I'll tell you later." His eyes showed a heavy determination that didn't suit a 7-year-old child. Although Caroline felt anxious, she said, "Okay," and stroked her son's head. On the reception dance floor, the first dance of the bride and groom had just ended. Vanessa was radiant in her white dress, and Richard looked at her with love in his eyes. The MC took the microphone and called for a dance by the bride's sister and her partner. "Next, we have a dance by the bride's sister, Caroline Foster, and her husband, Jason." Caroline stood up and headed to the dance floor with Jason. Her husband placed one hand on her waist and took her hand with the other. The music began to play, and they started to dance slowly. "You look beautiful," Jason said softly. "That dress suits you." Caroline tried to smile, but her heart was uneasy. "Thank you." Jason pulled her closer. "Is something bothering you?" "No, nothing," she lied. From the corner of her eye, she could see Vanessa talking with another guest. She was glowing. Seeing her sister truly happy, Caroline felt guilty. Her suspicions might just be paranoia. Maybe there was nothing between Jason and Vanessa. She was probably overthinking things. When the dance ended, Caroline returned to the table. There she found Aiden waiting for her. His small face was tense with nervousness, and he was clutching her smartphone in both hands. "Mom, we need to go." "Right now," Aiden whispered, grabbing her hand. Around them, guests were chatting happily, and music was playing loudly. Caroline smiled, trying not to lose her composure in front of her son, despite her confusion. "Why?" Aiden quietly took out his smartphone. "Look at this." When Caroline looked at the screen, she saw a photo of Jason and Vanessa talking intimately in the hotel lobby, holding hands. The date was from the day before the wedding. In that moment, Caroline froze, the blood draining from her face. As she swiped through the screen, more photos of the two appeared one after another. The two embracing in the hotel hallway, talking in a car. "I borrowed Emma's tablet, and a message from Dad came in," Aiden explained in a low voice. "I opened it by mistake, and there were lots of pictures of Dad and Aunt Vanessa." Caroline gasped. "Aiden, you..." "I'm sorry, Mom," tears welled up in Aiden's eyes. "But I knew Dad was doing something bad. Poor Uncle Richard." Caroline came to her senses and hugged her son. "You didn't do anything wrong. Thank you for telling Mom." Aiden continued, "Yesterday, when we arrived at the hotel, I took photos with Emma's tablet because Dad was talking to Auntie in the lobby. Dad saw me and tried to hide something." Caroline held the smartphone with trembling hands and looked at the photos appearing one after another. The last photo showed Vanessa handing some document to Jason. And then, the messages. Caroline scrolled through and read their conversation. It was clear their relationship had been going on for several years. Even more shocking, Richard seemed to be unaware of their relationship. "Mom, Dad, and Auntie are doing something bad. Poor Uncle Richard. Let's go home, Mom," Aiden pleaded. Caroline's head was in chaos. 15 years of marriage, 2 children, and trust as a family. Everything was about to collapse. And her sister. The person she trusted most. There had been competition since they were young, but she never imagined betrayal. Around them, the reception continued. Laughter, toasts, music. But to Caroline's ears, it sounded like distant noise. She was in a daze, unable to bear the contrast between the celebratory mood around her and her own crumbling world. Aiden took her hand again. "Mom, are you okay?" Caroline came back to her senses and looked into her son's eyes. She was moved by her son's courage, who, with his small body, carried adult secrets and tried to do the right thing. It was time to make a decision. "Aiden, thank you for showing me this. You're a brave and honest child," she hugged her son. "But we can't leave right away. First, I need to tell Richard the truth." "Uncle Richard?" Aiden's eyes widened. "Yes. He has the right to know the truth. This is an adult problem, but thanks to you, I can do the right thing." Caroline took a deep breath and resolved to find the groom, Richard, with the photographic evidence. Hiding the traces of tears on her face, she stood up. Holding Aiden's small hand, she said, "Let's go together." They pushed through the crowd, beginning to search for Richard. Caroline and Aiden found Richard in a corner of the reception hall. He was talking with several business associates. Caroline took a deep breath and gathered her courage. "Richard, could I speak with you for a moment?" she said, trying to appear as calm as possible. "It's important." Richard seemed to sense something from her expression. Of course, he apologized to those present and walked over to Caroline. "What's wrong? Is there a problem?" Caroline placed her hand on Aiden's shoulder and said, "Let's talk outside." The three of them left the reception hall and headed to the hotel garden. The night air was cold, and music and laughter could be heard from a distance. In a quiet corner, Caroline faced Richard. "I have something to tell you. It's very painful, but..." She continued, choosing her words carefully. "Aiden discovered something." She took out Aiden's smartphone and showed it to Richard. "Please look at this." Richard took the smartphone and looked at the photos on the screen. His expression gradually changed. First confusion, then understanding, and finally pain and anger. He swiped through the photos one after another. "How long?" he asked in a hoarse voice. "I don't know," Caroline answered honestly. Aiden found it by accident. He was trying to do the right thing. Richard exhaled quietly and returned the smartphone to Caroline. He seemed at a loss for words. "I don't know how long it's been going on, but I thought you had the right to know the truth," Caroline said. Richard, though shocked, maintained a certain calmness. "Actually, I felt something was off," he confessed. "Vanessa deleting messages frequently, sudden work schedules, but I had no evidence." He looked at Aiden and gently stroked his head. "Thank you for being brave enough to tell us, Aiden." At that moment, a voice came from behind Caroline. "What are you doing?" Turning around, she saw Vanessa and Jason standing in the garden. A look of confusion was on Vanessa's face. Jason seemed momentarily frozen. His eyes were directed at the smartphone in Aiden's hand. "What are you all talking about?" Vanessa asked again. She seemed to notice something was wrong from Richard's expression. Richard said quietly but firmly, "The truth seems to have come to light." He pointed to the smartphone. "I didn't expect to find out about you and him on our wedding day." The color drained from Vanessa's face. "What are you talking about?" Jason stepped forward, trying to explain. "Richard, this is a misunderstanding. We were talking about work." "Enough," Caroline interrupted. Her voice was trembling. 15 years of marriage, 2 children, and trust as a family, you two betrayed all of that. Vanessa reached out as if to snatch the smartphone, but Richard took it first and looked at the screen. It displayed messages between the two. "Can we meet tonight?" "I told Richard the first have a meeting," Richard read aloud. "So this is the meeting you were talking about." Silence fell. Aiden was holding Caroline's hand tightly. Suddenly, Vanessa broke down in tears. "No. It's not like that." "What is it like?" Caroline asked. "Why, with my husband." Vanessa suddenly exploded in anger towards Caroline. "You were always superior. Parents' love, good grades, perfect family. I was always in your shadow. Jason was the only one who truly understood me." Caroline was speechless. While she had always envied her sister, had her sister been envying her? Still, that was no reason to take her husband. Richard quietly declared, "The wedding is cancelled. I'll apologize to the guests for today." His voice was cold. "A home cannot be built on lies." Jason finally spoke up. "Caroline, please listen," he pleaded. "We just..." "Enough," Caroline said calmly. "Our marriage is over. For the children's sake, leave quietly tonight." Aiden looked up at his father. Confusion and sadness appeared on his small face. Caroline took Aiden's hand and said, "Let's go get Emma and go home." Before they left, she turned to Vanessa. "A real family doesn't betray each other, they support each other. You betrayed me, but I can't hate you. Just don't come into my life again." She left the garden with Aiden. Behind them, Richard was still saying something to Vanessa and Jason, but Caroline didn't look back. The road ahead would be difficult, but she knew that building a new life based on truth would be much better than living in a lie. 6 months later, in a newly built suburban neighborhood of Chicago. In front of a brand new red brick house, Caroline was unloading luggage from her car. The divorce proceedings had finally been completed last month, and she had begun a new life with her children. "Aiden, Emma. Bring your bags," she called from the entrance. The children hurried over, each carrying a small bag into the house. They had just returned from a weekend visit with their father. Caroline had begun working part-time as a counselor, using the psychology degree she already had. Her job helping people with family relationship problems allowed her to use her own experiences. The children were adapting to school, and Aiden in particular was recovering from the events of that day by regularly talking with the school psychologist. The days continued where he would ask, "Dad, doing bad things wasn't my fault, right?" But he was gradually coming to understand. As she was making tea in the kitchen, the doorbell rang. When she opened it, Richard was standing there. He smiled, holding a small potted plant. "A housewarming gift," he said. "I thought something that grows would be perfect for a new beginning." Caroline invited him in. Surprisingly, a friendship had developed with Richard after the cancelled engagement. Both were hurt during the first few weeks, but one day he invited her for coffee, and a conversation began. "Thank you for telling me the truth that day," he said. "It was painful, but much better than building a life on lies." While drinking coffee in the living room, Richard said, "Aiden is truly a brave child. He didn't take photos, but became suspicious from adult conversations and tried to find evidence. You're a wonderful mother to have raised a child with such insight." Caroline smiled. It was too precocious an experience for him, but he's overcoming it. Aiden and Emma were rebuilding their relationship with their father. Aiden in particular struggled to understand his father's betrayal. He sometimes had nightmares about the day he showed the tablet photos. Caroline was teaching her children that people make mistakes, but that's not everything. Thanks to therapy, Aiden was gradually beginning to enjoy weekends with his father. "I'm starting to understand that Dad really loves me," he said one day. "But why can't Mom and Dad be together?" Caroline patiently answered such questions. One day, while looking at social media, she discovered that Jason had posted a photo with another woman. There was a rumor that Vanessa had left town and moved to another office. Their relationship seemed to have collapsed quickly. December, Christmas Eve. Caroline was gazing at the fireplace, reflecting on the past 6 months. It had been a difficult journey, but she and her children were gradually healing. The doorbell rang. When she opened it, Vanessa was standing there. She looked thin and tired, with remorse in her eyes. "Do you have time to talk?" Vanessa asked in a low voice. "I broke up with Jason. It wasn't just me. Everything was a mistake." Caroline hesitated for a moment before opening the door wider. "The children will be happy," she said. "It's a special day, come in." As Vanessa entered, Aiden appeared in the hallway. At first, he looked surprised, but soon gave a small wave. "Merry Christmas, Auntie." The answer to the question, what is a real family, is complex. It's not just about blood ties, but about trust, honesty, and sometimes forgiveness. Aiden's courageous action taught them the importance of relationships based on truth rather than falsehood. Rebuilding a family is not an easy path, but they had taken the first step on that journey.